Hi, I'm Sami, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. I am super excited because today I have Larry Cornett. Now, for those of you guys who've been on this, listen to me for a while, I've had a lot of coaches, but this is the career coach that I read when I need some sort of career advice and stuff like that. And I'm pretty stubborn, so I don't always listen to other people, but I do listen to Larry. And just some context with how I was introduced to Larry is through a program called Be True Brand New, which you guys might have seen in the archives. I interviewed Kimra Luna. And now what I thought was very unique about Larry's approach is that a lot of career coaches kind of skirt over uncomfortable issues. Larry kind of faced the fact head on that there are recessions, there are layoffs, and you kind of got to do right by you. And I feel like he's almost kind of like a Cassandra in the career coaching field. So I wanted to bring him on. But, Larry, before I get too into it, how about you just, give us your elevator pitch. Tell everybody a little bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a leadership coach and career advisor. So I basically work with what I would consider to be ambitious people, and I help them become an opportunity magnet for the best things in life. So that's probably the quickest way to say it, but I do work with people who are perhaps struggling a bit in their career. They're getting stuck, they're not getting promoted, they're not getting raises, they've been faced with a layoff, or they lost their job, they got fired, and so they're trying to figure out what went wrong, and I help them get back on the right path and either continue moving up the career ladder, find a better place to be, or in some cases, like, hey, it's time to kind of strike out on your own, start your own business, and kind of get out of that crazy corporate world like I did.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that I really like is that you're preparing people not just for that next thing, but for the future. And you know a lot about pivots and transitions. I mean, if you guys look at this dude's LinkedIn, you have been an advisor to startups, you were a CEO and co-founder. Can you give us just a little rundown of your times in Silicon Valley? And you've seen recessions, you've seen change. Give us
Yeah.
a little bit about how you started.
Yeah, I'm old, so I've been around a while. It started with I got a PhD in psychology, and I was trying to figure out what to do with that. Um, wasn't really that interested in becoming a professor, and so I kind of discovered what they called human-computer interaction at the time. Luckily, my advisor was really into it. He was a software developer and a professor, so it was kind of nice. Um, so I found out about software design and got into that. And I started my first job in the Valley was at IBM. So I was a researcher and a designer at IBM. Finished up my dissertation, came back out to the Valley, got a job with Apple. So I was at Apple as a designer and kind of worked my way up there. Left to join a startup. So you did the whole startup thing. Everybody got excited about when the dot-com boom was happening. So this is like when Netscape first existed and all that craziness was in the Valley. And it was exciting. I mean, there are tons and tons of companies coming out of nowhere. It was too good to last. So yeah, at some point, I left the startup because we got acquired and fired and reacquired. It was crazy. And I said, I'm going to get some stability in my life. I'm going to start my own company and start doing some advisory work. So I was a design consultant working with a bunch of startups, and that was great. It was a lot of fun. But then the dot-com crash happened, so that was the first kind of recession, and especially in Silicon Valley, everything just collapsed. People were moving out of the valley, companies were closing doors, people were out of work. My clients were disappearing left and right, the small ones. So I went back into the corporate world for a bit. So I was at eBay, and that's when I got into management, and I worked my way up to become a director of design at eBay. Got excited about a new opportunity to go to Yahoo and work in search. So I got involved in web search, multimedia search, and all that kind of stuff. And continued kind of my management path and ended up becoming a VP of product at Yahoo for Yahoo Search, their consumer products. Did that for about 4 years. And then it was like we got the whole deal with Microsoft and Bing became the back end. And all of us working in search said, this isn't interesting anymore. Don't really want to do this. So I left, started doing some consulting, thinking I was going to go back and have another corporate job. And I was like, you know what? Maybe not. So it's like, that was 10 years ago. And just really enjoyed kind of doing the advisory work. I founded my own startup. and then got into the career consulting piece about 4.5 years ago. So it was really kind of came out of my experience as a manager and a leader, the part that I enjoyed the most about it, which was helping my team and really helping them get through their issues, mentoring them, sometimes even coaching them to get a job outside of the company when they were no longer happy being inside the company. And I was okay with that, because relationships go way beyond a single company. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 4.5 years, is helping people get ahead in their careers, get better jobs, and be happier with what they're doing.
Now, one thing that I notice as a real pattern with your story is being able to be agile, to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed this, but at least in the online chatter, there's this big separation between I'm an entrepreneur,
Right. Right.
and those job seekers. But it seems like, you've embraced very much a fluidity,
Yes.
being like a little bit like a mercenary, like you'll be on the team when
Absolutely.
necessary.
That's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. I learned that from a much older and wiser entrepreneur who he flowed in and out of companies. And so he said, sometimes there are opportunities to do things inside a company that are bigger than you can do as a consultant. Because as a consultant, you're allowed to do certain things, and certain projects just don't go to the consultant. They go to their kind of key employees within the company. And access to resources, access to stock options. He said, I dip in, I learn what I can, I have a good time, make some money, then I bounce back out again. And so he did this over and over again. So I learned it from him. It's like, don't be so rigid about what you do. There's nothing wrong with, if times are tight and something's going on with your consulting work, go back into a job, figure things out, regroup, replan, and say, okay, now what am I going to do? How do I find my new clients? Maybe I was doing something wrong before, I was losing clients. And you just get better and better at what you do when you do that.
Wow, no, that's what I also think is really interesting about that approach is that you're always kind of dipping in and refreshing your network a bit, because that's
Oh,
something
yeah.
that you talk a lot about is the hidden job network. And it's, for at least for me, like, because I've also worked with different companies and educational organizations, and it gives you, yes, like bigger projects, but it also gives like key decision makers and community leaders direct understanding of how you work in a team for a little bit longer, because
Right.
everybody gets kind of annoyed sometimes with that consultant who floats on in, makes them play like a weird agile game with like some
Yeah.
juggling or something like that, and then floats out.
Right. Right.
Have you found that that's been helpful even as you've been going into coaching and everything, like to cultivate
Yeah.
these different networks?
Totally. Yeah, I would say that's my unfair advantage, is my network. It really is. It started at IBM, and I'm still friends with those people, and that was back in '93. So it's like that was a long time ago. We stayed in touch. We know where everybody is. We help each other out. Apple was a fantastic network. I mean, working at Apple is one of those things. It's kind of, for a lot of people, their crowning achievement. They're really excited about it, and it's a great network, and I'm still friends with those people. eBay was a great network, and Yahoo was a tremendous network. When you look at the pollination in Silicon Valley of all the other startups, VC firms, you name it, I think Yahoo's the largest pollinator. So
Mhm.
Yahoo has people who've spawned more startups probably than any other company. I think PayPal's probably the second. There's kind of a close, they call it the PayPal mafia, but it's kind of a close tie. But it's all about the network. And it's hard as a consultant to build that kind of relationship, because there's always some distance. They know that you're not deeply in the trenches and stuck like they are, that you can bounce when you have to. So you build this camaraderie when you're working with people, and you're side by side going through kind of hell sometimes, and they know who you are, they know what you stand for, they know they can trust you. And it's been fantastic. I'm still, a lot of my clients when I'm coaching are people that used to work for me 10 years ago, or people that know those people.
Wow. And when you said that this networking is your unfair advantage, is that, when you, because your coaching practice is called, you have like this concept, Invincible Careers,
Yeah,
that's a big thing that you talk about. Is that something like, maybe is that part of the networking? Kind of maybe give me just a description of what is an invincible career. If someone wants to like
absolutely.
pursue that, what are some principles or some elements that they need in place?
Yeah, I've put together kind of a list of 10 principles, and I don't think I have 'em memorized, but it's basically about becoming so good at what you do, so in demand and so well known that you get to call the shots in your work. And I know people like that that are external, that are consultants that are like that. I know employees that are like that. When they get hired or they get acquired, their startup gets acquired, they basically get to do whatever they want to do because they're that good. They are that good, they're that in demand, and they know they can pick up the phone and call somebody and have a job within the week. And it's not even
Hmm.
an exaggeration. I know these people get job offers every single day. So it was looking at that, looking at some stuff that's happened in my own career that said that's really what you want in your career is the ability to make a choice and say, I choose to work for this company. I choose to work for this boss. I choose to work on this project. I don't feel like I'm forced to. I don't feel like, oh, I dread going in because I'm scared of my boss. Like, no, you can pick up the phone and be out of there in a day. You could have a job at any time. So it's about doing the kind of work that you like to do, working the kind of hours you want to work. So you're not forced to work crazy hours, working
Hmm.
with the people that basically make you better at what you do and you enjoy it, and spending time where you want to. So you're working where you want to, you're living where you want to. That's when you're invincible. It's like, I'm not forced to live in this city and forced to work at this job for this boss I can't stand. No, I get to
Hmm.
live wherever I want to live, do the kind of work I want to do, and spend time with the people that make me feel better about my life versus dreading it every single Monday morning, right?
Hmm. Amen. And I feel like that's something that people maybe like subconsciously know that they want, but they don't know how to get it. I feel like
Yeah.
on the whole, like a lot of people are very, even if they like have like a marketing background where they can market a product, when it comes to them in the job market, they
Yeah.
like they're stumbling around and it was like that 10 years of experience in PR just like disappears.
I know. I know.
Um
It's
it's
yeah. I'm glad that you said that because I talk about that because I work with a lot of people in tech. I would say
Mhm,
90% of my clients are people from tech. A few are outside of tech now. They're starting to come from other places. But I said the same stuff that you do to launch a product and to market it, sell it, find the right customer, make it really desirable, make it highly in demand. That's what you would do to yourself. You've got to figure out what makes you stand out in the market so you're the better product than any other product that's out there so that people want you, people are aware of you. It's like just take all those skills and turn it inward and say, how do I
mhm,
become a product? And I call it the product of you. I call it the business of you. People don't think about that. They don't think, well, I have to like market myself and I have to treat my career like a business. Like, yeah, it is. You're
mhm,
generating revenue, but you are the product. Do you want the most money you can possibly get for that product? You probably do, I would think.
yeah.
So why not apply those same skills?
Yeah, and the thing that I've noticed is it's not just juniors. It can be like I have a lot of
Oh,
my
yeah.
private clients are like mid-levels and seniors who they got hired, they kind of checked out,
Yeah.
from portfolio building. They've been under NDAs, like become real indoor kids even before this quarantine. And then when they do deal with a layoff, it's almost like they're starting from the
Yeah.
same level, except they're more expensive than some of this newer talent, you
Right,
know?
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's I think because I was in the corporate world for a long time and it's it's deliberately structured to keep you there. I mean,
Mhm,
it's the golden handcuffs, of course, but I call it the golden cage because it's more than just the stock options and the money. But you look at what Google does to their employees and Facebook, and we call it kind of the infantilization of Silicon Valley, which is like we feed you, we get you a doctor, we get you a dentist, we bring them on campus, we wrap your Christmas presents and ship them to people. They do everything for you. And so what happens is people lose touch with being kind of self-reliant and they lose touch with autonomy. And you get so used to it and used to being told what you do and being very focused on a very small niche of what you do. So you unlike when you're running a business like yourself, you just do one job and you focus very intensely on that. You don't if you're an engineer, you aren't doing marketing, you're not doing PR, you're not doing sales, you're not doing any of that stuff. You're not building customer relationships, you're just writing code. And so if you try to break free, you're like, "Well, who am I now? What can I do? I don't know where even to start with all that because I've been so focused on that one job for 10 years, 8 years, even 4 years. that I don't know who I am anymore or what I want to do.
Yeah, and that is the thing that I feel like is going to be the hardest part for some people who would ordinarily be seen as very well placed in this recession, is that they haven't had to think about recession proofing their career,
Yeah.
which for the listeners, just because you didn't get to see the pre-show chatter and everything like that, I remarked that it seemed like Larry had seen this coming, because it was like, what, like 4 years ago, you moved up to the
Yeah.
mountains, made like, like your little like coaching cottage in the
Yep.
hills.
Yeah.
Like you said that you were like kind of cryptic. You were like, I saw this coming. So how about like our listeners? Because I've been wondering about this the entire interview so far. What did you mean by that? Tell us a little bit about why you saw this coming, and maybe a little bit because you've seen your share of recessions, like
Yeah.
not with the
Yeah.
Stephen King twist naturally. um,
Yeah.
but what can we expect? Tell me, look into your crystal ball, Larry. Tell us what you saw, why you ran from the hills, and a little bit that's to come.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't expect the virus, but I knew something was coming. No, it reminded me a little too much of the last bubble and burst that I kind of went through when I started seeing startups getting money for things that seemed ridiculous. So I
Yeah,
mean
like
that's kind of
WeWork.
a sign.
Yeah,
Oh,
WeWork,
WeWork, the electric
Bird.
scooters. Yes, exactly. The electric scooters. And you start to see them being overextended. So all the money has been like they did before. They did this before and they didn't learn. Webvan's the classic poster child. They took every single ounce of money and expanded so rapidly into really expensive facilities, warehouses, trucks that when everything collapsed, they had no cushion. They were gone. Right. Great company, cool idea, a little ahead of its time, but it was growth at all cost. And that's what's happening now or has happened until this correction is it was growth at all cost. Put as much money into as many bets as possible. Tell those companies grow as quickly as you can. Don't worry about being profitable. I remember they told me that at my startup too. They're like, don't worry about being profitable. Just grow, grow, grow. I was like, what happens when you don't want to give me money anymore, right? Which is exactly these startups are collapsing now. So it that was one. It seemed eerily reminiscent of what I saw in the dot-com crash. Um, the other is looking at just some trends, some big global trends where certain markets that have been kind of the center of the world are not necessarily going to be that anymore. I think we've been very spoiled in the US.
Hmm.
We've been looking at even as long ago as when I was at eBay, which is 14 years ago, we were already offshoring tons of jobs, mostly engineering, but now more. And the tools that we use, video conferencing, all the stuff we use like Slack, makes it even easier for someone to be anywhere in the world and productive and contributing. So it doesn't have to be an employee sitting in a chair in the US anymore. So I saw that coming. Artificial intelligence, automation. There's a lot of stuff where they're like, do we really need designers? You can actually automate the design of a web page and it's pretty good. Do we even need architects? I've seen automated architecture. It's like pretty crazy and wild, but great. I mean, it's automated trucks driving down the road. We look at Tesla and what they're doing with the cars. So there's a whole sea shift coming. There's a big sea change coming where more and more jobs are going to be distributed around the globe, which I think in the end is a good thing. But it's going to be very disruptive for people who are used to being at the center of the universe, which was Silicon Valley. I think a lot of stuff's going to be automated. I think we're learning now that this probably isn't the last pandemic we're going to face, right? And I just knew it's like, you know what? I'm getting older, and that was another change that comes. And when you're younger like yourself, you don't realize what's coming, but you do see ageism in this industry and in a lot of
Hmm.
industries. And so they're like, yeah, if you're not a C-level executive by the time you're 50, probably time for you to leave. Probably time for
Yeah.
you to retire. It's harder and harder to get a job. So I work with a lot of people in their 40s and 50s that have said, wow, it's not as easy to get a job as it was 20 years ago. It's like I used to get a job at the drop of a hat, and now it's taken me months. And I said, well, what you're discovering, as you were saying, you're more expensive and you're older. And so they're like, yeah, maybe we just won't hire you. We'll hire someone else.
Hmm.
So I said, time for me to make myself more invincible and to make myself recession proof and create a business that doesn't depend on the US economy, doesn't depend on Silicon Valley. I could have global clients. I can work from anywhere. I don't have to drive into an office in a big city. And how could I do that? And if I had that luxury, which is part of an invincible career, where would I live? And so I moved close to a ski resort. I was like, I'd
There you
live in the
go.
mountains and get out of the valley and not be in traffic anymore. Because if I don't have to, why should I?
Hmm.
So that's why I kind of made that change. And I knew something was coming, and I knew I didn't want to be stuck in a big city when it hit. And here it is. We got hit.
We certainly did. It's been interesting because my degree is in history, and my focus was in the the early 1900s. Like I looked into like the Gilded Age and all the
Oh yeah,
robber barons, and like with the exception of us not doing the Charleston, there's been a lot of similarities. And for
yeah,
me, I'm looking at, because a lot of people like have been, my clients have been asking me, what can I do, what can I do, and like i I don't want to keep telling them like rehash the same things, you know but I am curious, what are you telling your clients? Like what can they expect? Like I've been telling them, like, prepare for this like a recession, put on your hard hat, manage your
yeah,
expectations on follow-ups and everything like that. But what have you been telling people and what they can expect from
yeah,
the next quarter at least?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we're in for a hard 12 to 18 months. I mean, everything I'm seeing is like, this isn't a business back to usual in 30 days, which we've been kind of told. I mean, they keep extending it. But if you look at the Spanish flu and you look at what happened in major cities across the US, there's a double spike because you relax the quarantine, people go back out into the streets and work, and all of a sudden, whoa, what do you know? Reinfection. So it's going to hit again. They're going to lock down again, whether we like it or not. We don't control the virus. It's like everybody keeps saying, when is this over? It's like, I don't know. Why don't you ask COVID-19?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what to tell you. But I think we're in for the long haul. And if you're prepared for it, if things go well, great. You're ahead of the curve and you're in a good place. If you don't prepare for it, you're going to get a nasty surprise when your business says, you know what, we're not going to reopen. We're actually going to
Mhm.
lay off more people because we're losing more business. So sorry, good luck. Um, what I'm telling people is to say, how can you take what you do, just like you do with anything, anytime you're looking for a new career, as you know, when you coach people, take what you do and make yourself desirable. Package up your skills, your knowledge, your experience, your talent, and say, where do I have gaps? Where am I potentially missing something that I could augment and get new skills? And then get yourself into a company that is doing well. So that's kind of the easiest first step, is to say, if your company's not doing so well because it's a physical kind of retail company, where could you be in a company that is doing well? Because some are. They're hiring like crazy. Tech companies are doing pretty well. Not all of them. So like Airbnb is in deep trouble. Uber is in deep trouble. Lyft is in deep trouble. Anybody who requires people to physically do something like go places, they're in deep trouble. But companies like Google and Facebook, they're doing just fine. Twitter, just fine. They don't care. I mean, there's
Mhm.
companies like, you look at Automatic, which makes WordPress. They've been distributed and fully remote from the beginning. They're like, so what?
Mhm.
My company's like that. I've been remote. I talk on the phone. I do video conferencing. I use Slack, email. Nothing's changed for me. Nothing at all. So look for a company that's like that. And that'd
Mhm.
be your first kind of line of defense, is to do that. If that's not working, look for an international company. Look for companies that are hiring remotely, because they exist, and it's becoming more and more companies embracing remote, which is fantastic. There's entire job search boards that are nothing but remote jobs. So go work for a company that's based somewhere else that doesn't care where you live. That's fantastic. And then just continue to fall back. But depending on what your appetite is for change, and I kind of talked about the pivots, at some point you may want to carve out pieces of what you do and say, well, if I'm a designer, how can I offer my skills and services online? Can
Mhm.
I design websites? Can I design resumes? Can I design collateral? Can I do print design? Can I do whatever? Just find some way
Mhm.
to offer what you do online. It's a lot easier for people in tech, but it's possible even for people in physical retail too. I've been talking with my gym owners about this because they shut their doors. They're
Mhm.
like, uh-oh, you know, it's in a small town with a very small population of customers. And I said, there's no reason you couldn't be having customers from all over the world joining your community, doing online workouts with you, video training, feedback on their form, coaching, helping people feel like it's going to be okay, which a lot of people just need
Mhm.
reassurance during this time. So I said, immediately spin up an online business and start offering what you're doing to everyone in the world. And so I
Mhm.
think that's kind of the ultimate hedge, is to say, no longer be restricted by geography and conditions in the US or wherever you're based. You should be able to have clients anywhere in the world like you do.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, and because not everybody likes the idea of freelancing, and it's not like you always have to have that as a revenue stream, but I think more than ever, it's really important for everyone to have some sort of portfolio that demonstrates their skill. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's like a hairdresser's Instagram
Yep.
or even the classic tech portfolio, or your, I don't know, you're a finance person, you do a case study, something that showcases a hard skill. And if you are freelancing or you're doing pop-up projects or even volunteering, that's going to stop you from having a gap in your employment. That's going to
Yeah.
be something that's going to keep you sharp, keep you networking. So for those who are like, I'd rather not have to freelance, because I get it. The client generation can be a struggle, especially in the beginning. There's other fringe benefits that you can
Right.
get back into a job with it. So thank you for your answer. There's a lot I think many people are going to have to think about to reframe how they do work. For some people who
Yes.
are
Yeah.
introverts or already kind of tech savvy, this is not bad. They're like, finally, this is how it should have been.
Yeah.
But extroverts, the audio processors, the people who really like it when the email becomes a meeting, I think
Right.
those
Right.
people are the ones suffering right now. So with that in mind, for those folks who want to have that invisible career, what is a job hunt activity that they should prioritize right now? There's always polishing up your resume, networking, doing some skill building, but what do you think is something, if they just need a priority list, what's the top of the list right now?
Top of the list is getting very clear about what you do and what you want,
Hmm.
because it's a wasted opportunity when someone says, "Okay, what do you want?" And you're like, I don't know." And I've
Hmm.
had that happen. So get crystal clear in your own mind, spend some time working through it yourself and say, what am I? What do I do? Sometimes that's obvious, sometimes it's not. And what do I want next? What do I really want next for my career? So get clear about that. Get very clear about kind of your professional brand. So button all of that up. Make sure your
Hmm.
Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, anything people can touch, even your Instagram, is aligned with who you are and what you're looking for. It doesn't have to all be, cookie cutter the same, but it should be like, oh yeah, they're a designer. They're a designer. They're a designer. I see them sharing designs. I see them sharing cool designs. I see them sharing their own designs. It's like, well, they're a designer. So just be very clear about how you represent yourself to the world. Package up all your stuff, refresh your resume, get some cover letters generated, because you're going to have to customize those for each, employer. And then the next thing is network like crazy. And that
Hmm.
means refreshing what I call kind of your strong connections that have gone dormant. They call it
Hmm.
dormant ties. You've got people you've probably known for 5, 10, sometimes 20 years if you're old like me, and you haven't touched base with those people forever.
Hmm.
Somebody you went to college with, you go check them on LinkedIn. It's like they're the CEO of a company now. It's like, when did that happen? Right?
Yeah.
Super connected. So you want to go through and reconnect with all those people, because those are people who know you and trust you already. You're not trying
Hmm.
to build a cold relationship with a cold email and send your job application. And these are people who know you and trust you and like you. So you can reconnect with them and say, hey, I'm starting to look for my next opportunity. And they'll say, oh, what are you looking for? You know the answer to that. And they're like, send
Hmm.
me your resume.
Hmm.
We'll do. And they'll do a warm introduction. And every single job I've ever had came from a warm introduction. Every
Yeah.
single one. I mean,
Hmm.
I never went in cold, ever. And it makes it so much easier. I mean, it's cake. It's the interviews almost feel like it's kind of an afterthought. They already know they want you.
Yeah. Well, it's always nice when you walk into the office and it feels like Cheers,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly. That's what you want. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's what I'd recommend for people to do. That's probably the best thing they could do right now.
Okay, good. Because I like having concrete actions, because it's not like I want to pressure people to productivity. There is definitely that
Oh,
conflict
sure.
right
Yeah.
now between the self-care and the productivity people. But like, I'm a practical person. Like I grew up in, small town Arizona and stuff like that. bad times happen. And
Yes.
sometimes the
Yes.
quicker you can kind of react, even if it's a small action, like I'm not saying like become a LinkedIn power user tomorrow and have 10,000 people in your network, but think about what is this thing that you can do. Maybe one day you can look over performance reviews and maybe
Yeah.
jot
Yeah.
down some good stats.
Exactly.
Another day you can do a call, to an old colleague. Like right now, everybody's getting in touch, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, these are really good steps, for people to follow. And you've given a lot of good food for thought in this interview. And I know that after listening to this, a lot of people at the very least should check out. You have like a newsletter. It's like
Yeah.
on Substack or
Substack.
something.
Yeah.
Before I mangle like where you are and what your services are, and just being like, it's Larry. Go find Larry on
Go
the
find him.
internet.
I'm
Just
actually
Google
pretty easy to
Larry.
find. Yeah. There's me and there's the guy who runs the pagan calendar for the US.
Oh,
There's two Larrys. He's very famous too. They're like,
um
"You run that?" And I said, "That's a different Larry."
okay. Well, I mean, I'm just imagining a buddy comedy right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Larry and Larry. Yeah.
I think it could work out. The left brain meets the right brain.
Exactly.
So Larry, I know that people should check out your stuff. How about you lay out where people can find you on the web, what you're doing, and just give all them details.
Yeah, probably the easiest is the newsletter. So if you go to invincible.substack.com, it's Substack. It's a newsletter site. I provide tons of free advice. I've been doing it for almost a year. It's like 165 newsletters that are up there now. Most of those are free. I do provide group coaching through that too. So if someone wants to kind of take it a step up and get a little more coaching through a group format, I do it through the newsletter for the premium version. And I talk about it in there, but I offer one-on-one coaching too. But that's kind of the next step for people that want that that kind of treatment. But the newsletter is probably the easiest place to find me.
Okay, awesome. Well, Larry, thank you so much for being on my show. This has been a fantastic chat. I feel more reassured with your practical, sensible, like mountain man advice that you're bequeathing. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you all for listening. As always, I'm Sami Gardner, your career specialist. Thanks for listening to the Career Kickstart Show. Bye. Change your career, change your life at CareerKickstartAcademy.com.